Just bounce to this.
Hey, how's it going everyone? My name is Brandon Clements and welcome back to another tutorial here on Glasshand. What we're going to do today is take this Stormtrooper helmet asset, we're going to bring it into Substance Designer, create some really cool textures for it, and then bring it back into Cinema 4D and Octane and see how both of these programs can work together and how I use them in my workflow. So there's a lot to talk about, so let's go ahead and jump in. So this is an asset I created in ZBrush, and you can see the eyes are kind of weird because I just had filled them in really quickly, and a lot of this is actually different pieces, which is not what I really wanted to have in the actual final asset. So I went ahead and retopologized that, and I'll show you some of the tools that I use to actually get it to this state. Okay, so you can see everything now is one piece. And this is going to be really nice to actually UV unwrap and get it looking really nice and have all the textures look good inside of Substance Designer. So let's see how we can actually retopologize assets in Cinema. I'll go ahead and switch back to Garage Shading. And let's actually go up to Mesh and go to Create Tools. And then I'm going to use this Polygon Pen tool. You can also get to it by hitting M and E on the keyboard. So if I hit M, E, I'm going to lock the panel so we can talk about it. And I recommend locking the panel while you're working because all these options are very important. Another thing to note is that we're in vertex mode right now. It responds a little bit differently in edge and polygon mode, so definitely keep an eye on what mode you're in. So let's go ahead and say I want to go and do this quad strip mode. And all I can do is just left click and drag, and you can see that I clicked 4 times and it actually created a polygon face for me back here, but that's not what I want. I actually want to snap it to the helmet, so I have to turn on my snaps and then make sure polygon snap is turned on. Then as I click, you can see now the vertices snap to the helmet perfectly. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how we can use this new polygon to retopologize and start to bring ourselves away around this helmet. So if you hold Control, and I'm in this tweaking mode that says full, so no matter what I'm highlighting, whether it's an edge, a face, or a vertex, I can basically extrude. So let's say I want to extrude this face outward. I just hold Control and left click and I can move that face out. It's a little wonky now because of the actual snap is still on, so if I turn that off now it's all nice and smooth. Okay, so if I hold Control and left click and drag, I can drag out an edge, and you can see that you can build up a nice retopologized mesh pretty quickly by doing this. And if you notice when I'm clicking and dragging, these vertices are welding together. That's because auto weld is on. So with that off, that doesn't happen. So it depends on how you like to work. Obviously it's going to be easier having this auto weld on, and you can just create this and you know, reposition it however you like just by left clicking and dragging. So it's kind of like a multi-tool, especially if you have it in this full tweaking mode. If you just wanted to mess with points, you can limit it yourself, edges, and also to just polygons itself. Okay, so this is nice if you have a really dense object that you're messing with. Alright, so what else can we do with this tool? We can also go to face mode and we can get this polygon brush radius, and you can see, let's go ahead and put it to 0.1. You can see it in the viewport kind of come up. It's this now a circle. If I wanted to actually increase that, I can just use the middle mouse button and hold it down and drag left and right to increase the size of that. So let's go back to 0.1, and then I can just left click and drag and just draw on top of this object, and you can see here it kind of messed up a little bit. So let's just go ahead and try that one more time with the Polygon Pen tool, and you can see how easy it works. I think I ran into another edge back here and it just kind of freaked it out. But you can create all these different designs. Of course, if you have a larger brush, you're going to create a larger polygon. So let's make it a little bit larger. There we go. And you can see we're creating really large polygons now. So a lot of versatility with this brush. You can also, let's go into edge mode. And if you hold Control Shift, you can see that the indicator is showing me that it's creating an arc. If I left click and then hold left and right, I can begin my subdivisions and create an arc here. So really cool stuff. And I still have this quad strip on, so it's creating these quads. So if you actually have Create Ingon turned on, then you can just kind of come through and draw however you would like. If you have this turned off, so you're not creating Ingons anymore, it's going to be very particular of how you draw, and it's going to try to help you out. So if I wanted to get rid of an edge with Create Ingons, I need to turn that back on. If I want to get rid of an edge, I just hold Control, left click, and it's gone. A face is the same way. Okay? So with that knowledge, I think you guys can go through and work and do whatever you need to do in terms of retopologizing. It's just as simple as that. It just takes a lot of time to kind of go through and do whatever you need to do. So definitely take the time out to make sure that you do it right. So I want to get my asset into Substance Designer. Let's just put this in its own scene real quick just so we can focus on the helmet. I want to get this into Substance Designer, but I need to make sure that my UVs are looking good. And I already have those looking pretty decent. If we go back in here, you can see that I've edited the shape a little bit, so we got these polygons kind of stretched out. Now I'm going to show you how to actually get it to this state. So let's restart. Let's go ahead and just go into our polygon mode, and I'm going to select everything and go into the top viewport. What I'm going to do now is just project a frontal view. So what I'm doing is just taking this camera angle, and then I'm going to flatten all those polygons out into my UVs to look the same. If you do not see your UV mesh and you do have it selected, you need to make sure that this is enabled. It's not enabled by default, and I don't know why. It's really weird that it's not on by default. But whatever. We'll just go over and select the edges that we want to select down the back seam of this helmet. So I'm going to go into my lasso. Let me unlock the panel and click on my lasso again. And I'm going to actually just clip this so that the forehead is right out of this area. So this seam is what I want. My goal is to just basically take the seam, cut those edges so that the UVs fold this direction, and it folds that direction to the right. So it's basically you're like trying to iron this out, if you will. And that will be our first step, our first kind of big cut. And we're going to go to Relax UV, and we're going to make sure that this cut selected edges is turned on, and then go ahead and hit apply. And you can see that it made it super teeny tiny. So let's go to optimal mapping and say realign. So this is pretty decent for what we want. But some of these areas that are really small are being compressed because they're located here in the middle of this model. All right, so I want to try to expand that and use some of these creases to help me get this mouthpiece to be a lot better than just that. And I also am going to cut out the ears, okay, those ear pieces. So you can see how that seam actually works. I'm going to just select this seam around the outer edge of the earpiece. I'm just using my move tool and just double clicking. I can also use another really cool selection tool. If you hit U and then M, it'll bring up this live path selection. Right now it's set to live path. If I check this add to selection, what this will allow me to do is I don't have to hold shift anymore since it's set to add to selection, and I can just like draw a path that I want. So this may be an easier way for you to select, and it sure will be here in a second once we go and select more intricate kind of edges. So let's actually just double click right now, and we can get those loops really nicely. Looking good. So let's go ahead to our Relax UV, and we're going to run that again. And you can see that the ears are actually cut out. I want to get these ears out and away from the mask. We could just go ahead and just do another realign, and that will pop them out there. So we could do that, or we could just make sure that we grab our UV polygons, select one of those, right click, select geometry, and then select connected will select an island for you all at once. So that's nice to know. But we want to go ahead and try to get this mouthpiece away and uncompressed like it is right here. You can see that it's very tiny and compressed again. So let's go back to our edges mode, and we just need to, let's just double click on this edge right here, and I think that will be good. I just want to basically use that seam, that divot there, to break up these pieces for us, and we'll have those teeth overlapping that, so it won't be easy to see this seam. We want to kind of strategically have these seams placed so that they're not easily seen from basically the back of this is going to be okay from the render view. So let's just go ahead and select that seam, and then I'm going to use let's go UM to my live path, and I'm just going to draw up this direction here. And what this is going to do is, again, there's some more detail that's hiding this seam in our actual render, so we won't be able to see this. And what it's going to do is just allow us a little bit more breathing room here for these holes. We could also cut these out if we wanted to, but I think this is going to be nice enough for us. And I accidentally messed up our selection, so allow me to back up and just reselect this again. Okay, so something like that. Let's go ahead and say relax UV, and let's go ahead and hit apply. Now you can see that it's allowing these polygons to kind of breathe a lot easier, and you can see the mask is its own island, as you can see here in the 3D view by how the edges are cutting it up. Let's go ahead and hit realign, and we can see that we have equalize island size turned on, so it's going to allow us to actually have these nice even texture densities. Okay, so I want to actually just kind of realign this because it's kind of driving me nuts that they're just at this awkward angle. So you need to have your UV polygon selected. You can hit your rotate tool and bring that up with your UV polygons, and then let's go ahead and let's just realign these guys too, because it's kind of driving me nuts that they're a little crooked. So they don't have to be like perfect. So let's just go ahead and squeeze these out. There we go, and rotate them. And then preserve orientation is turned on, so let's apply. Okay, awesome. So this is looking good. If any of these elements wanted to be bigger, if we wanted to make them larger, it would just have more texture resolution and more detail in these areas that we make larger. Okay, so sometimes you will want that because maybe it's a hero shot. You know, maybe like there's a shot that needs to be really close to the eyes, so then you would have to create another UV set for that hero shot and make that really nice and large. And it's easy to do that with Substance Designer because you can always export larger maps going back and forth. So it really works pretty well. All right, so I like how this is set up. Let's go ahead and export this. Let's go back to our startup, and we're just going to shoot this out, and we're going to export this as an OBJ. So export and OBJ. So I'm going to find the correct directory. And I'm just going to replace that. And then let's say centimeters 1, this is fine. No material, white, and this is really good. It's going to work for us. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And let's jump over into Substance Designer. Okay, so here's the welcome screen to Substance Designer. Let's choose the new substance. We have an option of physically based metallic roughness or specular glossiness. I'll leave a link in the description to the material that Algorithmic has put together. It's awesome. Definitely read it if you're unfamiliar of PBR rendering and workflows of creating these shaders and creating textures out of Substance Designer. I'll do my best to explain, but of course I'm not going to be as good as some of this textbook stuff. So let's go ahead and name this graph to Stormtrooper Helmet. This will be our example project. 4096, we can actually bake larger than 4096, inside of Substance Designer. You can get 8192 if your hardware can handle it. So I've done it before, doing 8K maps. It's pretty awesome. And this is the outputs that we're going to have: base color, normal, roughness, and metallic. So that's exactly what I want. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. It's all preference, but you know, metallic roughness, specular glossiness, there's no right or wrong. It's all just preference. And I prefer to do metallic roughness, and I'll hopefully be able to convince you guys in this tutorial why it's good to do so. So I'm going to head and save this into my directory. I'm going to replace my Stormtrooper helmet file. And let's go ahead and link our mesh. So if this top panel, this Explorer, is where you're going to be able to right-click a lot and find a lot of contextual kind of stuff. Linking 3D meshes, bitmaps, vector graphics. It's all good stuff here that we want to use and link. You can also import. I use the link because it basically reads it from the drive. So if I went back into Cinema 4D and made changes to the mesh, it will actually update after I save that here in Substance Designer. Also, if I have a bitmap, a PNG, JPEG, whatever it may be, Targa, you know, you name it. If I'm working on it in Photoshop, I can make those changes, save it, and it will actually update here with this link function. So it's really nice to actually do it that way. And then you can also, if you right-click on your substance, you can export those as bitmaps, which we'll be doing here at the end. Okay, so this is just kind of like your Explorer, your kind of menu, more contextual type stuffs. Your library, of course, has all of your different environments, which is located down here at the bottom, which you can just kind of drag and drop and get different previews. Really super handy. Of course, the 3D view is just the actual viewport and renderer. This base color, what it's saying is base color, is going to be different as you double click on these different nodes. It's going to show you what that result is in this window. And then over on the right, you're just going to actually see the properties that you'll be changing as you move along. Okay, and then the top, of course, is the graph, and we'll be adding new nodes by hitting the space bar and just searching for those nodes here. Okay, so let me go ahead and just say that everything that's listed here is searchable, and these nodes, of course, can be found over in the library section. And then some of those nodes that you reuse all the time are here, and you can drag and drop those into the graph if you want. I find it easier just to type it and just hit enter. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop a simple base material down. I think it's nice to go ahead and work with these base materials because you can actually blend different materials together and create really complex graphs. So say if you had like rust and you had created this rust, you could blend it with an actual metallic shader and use a mask to cut those areas away how you want. Okay, so everything here is just procedural, and it's generated through a lot of these nodes, and we'll actually let's just start and you'll see how it works. So right now my view mode, if I hit 1 and 3, that's how I'm switching back and forth. If I hit 1, I'll actually see each individual knot. If I go to 3, it will show me the actual material view. So this green dot means material, and it's pretty smart. So if I drag this over, it will connect it all up for me individually. So quick tip, it's pretty nice to actually do that. But I don't want to be staring at this cube. Let's go ahead and save, and then let's link. If I right click on the project, let's link a 3D mesh, and let's bring in the OBJ. We get this awesome little resources folder. It's really nice. And then we'll drag and drop our new helmet in here. Okay, so looking good. Our mesh looks fine. We got a really wide lens, so let's go ahead to our camera and edit the camera to a 50 mil. This is kind of like what our normal eye sees, more or less. And that will do. And you can see the resolution here. You know, glare, depth of field. If you wanted to change all of those, it's done in the actual camera. But it's fine for now for me. I'll leave it. The environment, you can edit and then turn it if you would like to get better light on the model. Then you can go into your materials. We definitely need to make sure that we are physically based. Metallic roughness, parallax occlusion is going to be fine. But if this was set to our specular glossiness, our project and our nodes would not match exactly what's happening here in the 3D viewport. So definitely a gotcha if you haven't seen this before. And right now we're working in 4096 by 4096, but I'm going to go ahead and change this to 11 by 11 to do 2048 by 2048. It'll be a little bit snappier, especially with the screen recording going forward. So I believe that is the basics of just going ahead and setting this up. Of course, you can go and change this to iRay render, and it will create a really, really awesome, nice render. So, and then you have all of the options here as well. So let's go back to OpenGL. This is really nice and quick. As I select my base material, it's really nice to go ahead under the user-defined maps and kind of strategically base out what you want to do. So let's go ahead and say I want to enable my metallic for now and my base color, and let's go ahead and enable, we'll just have those enabled for now, also the roughness. And then you can see those knots actually pop up right here. For example, using this kind of metallic roughness workflow, if I drop down just a uniform color, I'm going to describe whether the surface is a conductor or a dielectric. Meaning, is it a metal or is it a non-metal? Conductor is metal, dielectric is non-metal. So let's go ahead and create this uniform color. Let's make it grayscale and just say, is it non-metal using black, or is it a metal using white? Let's go ahead and just say this is a metal for now and drop that in there and see what that looks like. Of course, we need to go ahead and right click on our metallic output and say view in 3D, and then tell it the channel to be metallic. Let's go ahead and do that now for every channel. For roughness, we're going to show that in 3D as the roughness. Let's view in 3D as the normal, and let's view this in 3D as the base color. Sometimes you'll have to update this if you drop in a new mesh like I did. So just keep that in mind. The way this shader is working, let's go ahead and drop in a new uniform color for the base. The way the shader actually works, it's pretty interesting. To describe the shininess of the surface, because this is a black metal right now, to describe the shininess of the surface, we need to actually change the base color. So as we increase the base color, you can see that we get this like chrome effect. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself how you would do this inside of Octane. In Octane, you basically have to adjust your index number to very high so that this Fresnel and F0 reflection, this forward-facing angle and the glancing angle, is controlled by the index. So you adjust that really high, and it makes it really shiny across the entire surface. And then you adjust your specular level to tell the shader how shiny that surface is. To me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense as this does. Basically, what I can do is describe if it's a metal, non-metal by one color, and then actually color picking from reference, I can almost nail that shininess pretty easily just from the vibrance slot here of the color. Okay, and then of course you can change the roughness. So let's do something interesting like add a noise. So let's go ahead and find a noise pattern, and let's just do like these black and white spots. Any of these noise grayscale maps will work going in to the roughness channel. So I don't think I mentioned gray and gray go together, and orange go together. The orange is actual RGB information. Grayscale is white or black. So let's go ahead and connect that up, and you can see we have a really dirty metal here. And this is just a whole lot of fun to be able to create these graphs. If I hit the space bar and I say invert, I can invert this grayscale. With that actually selected, you can see that it automatically set it up for me. Okay, so when you have a node selected, and let's just do something redundant again, just for example's sake, it will pipe it into the chain. So if I wanted to get rid of this invert grayscale, I could hit delete or backspace. Backspace will actually just take the node out and leave the wires, whereas hitting delete will actually destroy the wires for you. Okay, so two options there. Definitely keep that in mind. Let's look at some other nodes that we can use in our workflow of creating this kind of shader out. So we can actually do things like comments. So let's bring this out here. Let's see, drag it out and place it. There we go. So if we have the node selected, we have this little comment, and we can say this is the base color. You know, if you're working in a team, you can kind of strategically talk to that, that team member by just having these comments. You can also select a group of nodes. Let's just kind of move all these nodes up. Let's select these guys, just marquee select, and let's add a frame to it. Okay, make the frame a little bit bigger, and then put our guy back in here. And I'm going to get rid of that comment. Okay, so now when you have it in a frame, you can move these around, and you can just say first nodes ever created, and it will show it. Or you can just bring these guys outside of this frame, and let's make this a little bit smaller, and then say base color. And then you can go through and organize all of this however you would like. You can say this is the roughness, and you get the idea. You can stay very organized this way, so your actual nodes don't get to be a mess. So really cool stuff. Let's go ahead and let's start kind of working on our Stormtrooper. So I'm looking at a reference right now. This is a Stormtrooper. I'm sure most of you know what a Stormtrooper looks like, and this is going to be a plastic. Most of this is all going to be kind of plastic. So this is kind of just a simple example project. We'll get into more complex projects here on our channel, but I want to introduce you guys to how to set this up in a simple way. So let's create this white kind of plastic for most of the color. So we'll pick, and I'm just actually going off screen to select that. And right now we're still metallic, so I'm going to slide this all the way down to plastic. And you can see now that it's now plastic, and we need it to be shiny. So let's actually kind of get rid of this guy, and you can see that it's relatively shiny. It's got some grunge. One really cool node. Let's go ahead and hit spacebar, and let's do the histogram scan, I believe, and we can kind of alter this position. Now, if we double click, we can see. As I'm sliding this up, we can see the result of just this one node. So if I double click here, this is what it looked like. Double click, this is what the scan is doing. And you can see that as I move this position up, it's changing the look of that. It's basically going through scanning for these different values and adding them in there. So let's add just a little bit more and kind of add a little bit more interest to this. So let's go ahead and adjust the contrast a little bit more. Okay, let's maybe call that fine. Maybe the black is a little bit too black, so what we could do is drag a levels to the wire, and it will automatically hook that levels up for us. And let's drag this black up a little bit so that even the dark spots are still a little blurry. And then these white spots are just really, really blurry. Okay. So you can see how complicated you can make this just by adding a couple of nodes into the graph. And this is just our metallic color. So let's go ahead, just so we don't confuse ourselves, and let's just add a frame and just say this is metallic. So in most of the cases, this is gonna be a binary color, white or black. But you could break those rules if you know how it works and create some really interesting effects. I probably wouldn't recommend it because I'm not sure if that's how the shader is actually supposed to be used, but you can do that if you want to experiment. Let's actually do something else with this one color. Let's not just leave it flat. Let's select it and hit space and type blend. What this is going to do is it's a node that will allow us to add things on top of this color. So I'm going to put this as the background. For the foreground, I'm going to actually copy this black and white spots. Let's use it again. And I'm going to do kind of the same thing. Again, histogram scan. Let's see what this looks like as I scoot it up. That looks pretty good. I just want to add some black spots. So I'm going to just hit spacebar, hit invert, grayscale, go down. Now it's actually white and black, so I am going to just multiply this over top of the blend. Let's say multiply. And you can see immediately I get this error, these dotted lines. And why is that happening? Well, it's because this is a color and this is a grayscale value. So to change that, I actually just need to feed it into a gradient map. So this gradient map will actually change it from a color, from a black and white to a color. And I can dock this, since it's kind of insignificant, by just hitting D on the keyboard, and it will dock it right there for me. So let's look at that result by double clicking. You can see there's a little bit of flake just kind of showing up. And since it's the result of this right here, like both of these noises are still the same, it would make a whole lot of sense that there would kind of be these black and white spots or these specks of dirt kind of popping up where it's like really blurry and gritty. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Adding some dirt and stuff, pretty neat. Let's actually just go and start to segregate out some of these different portions. This looks a little bit too blue, first of all, so let's take the saturation down a little bit. So the actual eyes of this mask are black, so is the headband, and we're not going to do the entire portion here with the hardware, but let's just try to see how we can separate this out. Well, it's really easy. What we'll do is first we'll just right click and save. We'll go back into Cinema 4D real quick, and what I want to do is go into body paint, and I'm going to select these eyes here. So I'm going to use my live selection brush, and I'm just going to select these guys here, these eyes. Basically what I'm doing is creating a mask. I'm going to export this as a mask, and I think those are the faces that I want. Yep, those look pretty cool. I think it's going to work well, so let's go ahead and select some more of this, like so, and get that guy out. Okay, so we got those selected. This is going to be the actual image. This is going to be a black and white mask. So I'm just looking back and forth at my reference. This will be a different black than the actual headband. So let's go over to our panel, and we'll say File, New Texture. New Texture, we're going to call this Eyes Mask or something like that. 4096 is good because that's probably what we'll finish in. 8-bit's fine, and I think everything's good. We'll hit OK. So then in our layers portion, we need to add a new layer, and we need to make sure that we have our UV polygon selected, and we're going to fill this with white. So let's look at our color, which is on this tab down here. Looking good. I just need to actually fill. So let's go, and I believe it's down here, fill polygons. It's a teeny tiny little icon, but just click there, and now we have filled those eyes in. So let's go ahead and let's save this map. So save texture as. Let's just use something simple like a PNG. That's going to work for us. Let's go and put this in the right directory that we want. And of course, like always, I will make this scene file and all the files. You know, you guys can download this on Gumroad for 99 cents like we always do. So let's just go ahead and say masks folder. And that's the eyes masks, and we'll save. Let's hop back over into Substance, and we're going to link a new bitmap. And we're going to go and say, find that masks eye. There we go. And it pops down here as a resource. We can just drag this in, and we're looking pretty good. So this is going to be sorry, that's annoying me. Let me just kind of delete that and add that frame again. There we go. Sorry about that. Let's just type metallic one more time. Okay, so to finish my thought, this is going to be the kind of white material. So we can just grab all this and say ST white. so that we know all these nodes have to do with the actual base color of it. And this base material here is going to be blended into a new black eye kind of material. So let's say, let's see, blend, let's type blend, and we're going to do a material blend. Okay, this looks all complicated, but if we just hit 3, now we can go into the material view and we can say we're going to blend 1 with a new base material. And we'll pipe this in here. And the result will go to our outputs. This is what we'll be finishing with. But we want to be able to separate that by this grayscale mask. So let me just make sure that this is grayscale. So we'll pipe that in, connect that up. And there we go. You can see that the eyes are now separated. Let's start working on this base material. So we'll select it and we'll say user defined maps. We just need base color, and let's just do metallic here. So our metallic is going to be black because it's going to be plastic. And let's put in a uniform color. And this uniform color is going to be black. So let's go ahead and connect these up. All right, so our roughness. We don't actually have to generate maps for these if we don't want to. We can just do them right here. I hope you guys can see the difference between the two. So I have user-defined maps for base color, roughness, and metallic, and I was able to customize and put those knots together. But if I don't want to, I don't have to have those as user-defined maps. I can actually just turn this metallic off and just have the base color be this user-defined map. And I'm just using these procedural roughness and metallic sliders here to adjust the actual colors for that. So now our eyes are shiny and looking cool. So let's do some more. Let's actually do this kind of the side part right here. We'll do it the exact same way. We'll jump back into Cinema. Let's select this guy. Let's select the polygons we want. And we don't want that sidewall. We'll take these. Okay, cool. Let's do the other side as well. Selecting all of these faces. And let's make sure that they match. We can actually just zoom in here. Looks like we need to get these top rows. And I think we're good. So now, of course, we just repeat those same steps. We're going to do a new texture. We're going to call this guy cheek mask. And we'll go ahead and create a new layer. We'll go over, grab the polygons, we'll fill them with white, and then we'll say save as. Let's just do a PNG again. In that same place, hop over into Substance, and we'll link those bad boys up. So bitmap, we'll say cheek mask. And we'll be using this again. So we'll just create another material blend. So let's say blend. There he is, material blend. Let's pipe this into the first part, put this into our outputs, create a new base, and make sure this cheek material goes into here. And again, we are going to use our grayscale map. Sorry, of course, make it grayscale. And use our grayscale map as our mask. Okay, so now it's coming through. And we'll go into the base. Let's actually just have a new base color here. And we'll add it. Let's pick a color from our reference. Again, we're going to describe the metallic and it's not metal, it is a plastic. And the roughness, let's actually just for a second here, let me find a better reference of the Stormtrooper, of that cheek part. So let's say Star Wars Stormtrooper New Hope. And I'm not even sure. Oh, it's got kind of little vents on it. Okay, cool. So let's add those into this right here. So what we're going to do is just add a new blend. And I'm going to use a shape node. Okay, so what this shape is going to do, it's going to allow me to draw out a area so we can start to line these up. So let's do a square, and let's take the size down so it's just a line. And we want this to tile. Okay, so let's see if we can bring that up. Maybe to something like that. We can also bring this down, and you can start to see how this can tile in the Y as well, but I think this is going to be good for us. What we can do now is hit spacebar and do a 2D transformation. This 2D transformation will allow us to scale it down however we want. You can see that it's tiling. That's not what I want, so I'm going to actually say, let's make this tile mode absolute and absolutely no more tiling. And there we go. We can kind of move that around however we want, but that will do. You can see the changes from here to the next node have been made, and we're actually going to, we could do multiple things here, but let's try using a gradient map. So using the gradient map editor, we're actually going to look at these knots. So what is now white? Let's try to see if we can change this to like a darker blue something. Let's see, maybe like that, maybe something there. Okay, and then let's actually pipe it in here and say if we can just not subtract, but we just want to actually, maybe subtract could work well, but we just would like to multiply that. So let's actually not have the black. Let's change the black to white. And you can see that works well. The reason why that works, if you think about simple arithmetic, so if black is the number 0 and white is the number 1, when you actually multiply, white will keep it the same. It'll just kind of go away, and black will actually be a multiplier for that color. So I don't know if I described that right or very clearly, but that's kind of how it works in a weird way. Okay, so let's actually go to this size and kind of adjust this a little bit more to make it a little wider. Okay, so the reason why it's not actually showing up here, it's because, remember, this is a 2D texture. So this is actually being placed all over the map when it actually only needs to appear in this part right here. Okay, so we could actually just copy and paste this. We could just make another blend. And we could make sure that, let's say this is a color. And let's just go ahead and say that that's the area that it needs to actually be in. So it's going to be very, very tiny. But that will kind of give us a little representation for when we move this down. So the cool thing is that I'm looking at the result here, but I have the node selected in this 2D transform, so I can hold Control and Shift and scale this down to be very tiny and then place it where it needs to go. So say something like this and just kind of rotate it. So something like that. Let's go ahead and make those connections valid and you can see that it actually shows up now. Okay, as some kind of little small detail. We can go back into the transform and of course make this a little bit longer like so. You know, this is just kind of for example. You can get this as perfect as you want, and you can pipe this into your height map and actually get some really cool detail. So let me just show you. I always talk about this, but let me just show you. You go into the user defined maps. Let's actually generate the height, and we can use this map that is right here, and we can pipe this into the heights information. So you can see that it automatically adds a grayscale conversion, and then you can see that it actually looks like it's recessing it into the back part. So let's go into the height and make sure that range is all the way up. And of course we can go into our level and make sure that this isn't so white so that it doesn't push in as far. And just by adjusting the white, just by adjusting the black, you can see that we can pull it out so it's not so deep, because it was really, really deep. And it'll give us a nice kind of subtle effect. Okay, so to make that actually happen on the other side, we just need to create another blend and kind of copy this over and blend them together again. So this would be like the left side, and this would be the right side. Let's use a blend, and let's say that these are going to be added together. And as I move my transformation over to the other side, let's go ahead and move this over. Sorry, not add, multiply is what we want. And as I move this over to the other side, we can use this kind of as a reference. To move it over. To something like that. Okay. And like I said, this is just for reference kind of purposes. But now that we have this transform node and everything coming down into here, we can basically just blend. Oh, sorry. They're already blending together because of this node right here. So let me get rid of our little kind of reference copies that I made. And so we made both of these transformations blend into each other. So now they're showing up side by side, and those get filtered down into this levels, which goes into the height information. So now we have those both showing up on either side of the helmet. So let's go ahead and save, and let's talk about, we could continue on this Stormtrooper, but let's go ahead and talk about how we can get this into Octane and get this looking exactly like it's showing up here. So what we need to do is right click and say export outputs as bitmaps, and let's go ahead and navigate to this scenes folder, this Stormtrooper Substance Designer. I'm going to make another one that's just called Outputs. And let's go ahead and select that folder. And we want the base, the normal, and the roughness. And we'll go ahead and put the metallic in there as well. So let's say Save All. Let me just mention that these outputs are at 2K right now. So to actually get the output size to 4K, you need to have nothing selected in this graph view. And you would actually have to put this up to 12. Okay, if you go into, let me show you a little tip to get an 8K map. If you go into your preferences, and we're looking for our cook preferences, So right here, the cooker. The cooking size limit that I have is 8K 8192. I hardly ever go over 8K, especially with Octane. It uses a lot of VRAM, so I hardly ever go over 8K. But if I need it, I can actually set this to 13. And you'll see it update, and you'll see everything kind of filter in here in a second. It's taking its time. You can see it's kind of generating it in this long way, and then it will pop into an actual square map here in a second. Okay, after a moment, you can see that this is starting to think, and there we go. 8192. Eventually, this will get down the line. 8192, 8192. So we do have a very detailed map. It's very, very crisp. So if you need an 8K map, you can generate it out of Substance Designer if your hardware can handle it. Okay, so to wrap up this whole idea of getting this back into Octane, let's do something to add metal just to this. Just to better demonstrate how we can use the metallic workflow to translate that into a specular glossiness workflow. Okay, so this is just for example. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another material blend. Okay, so we're going to pipe that in there as material 1 and then material 2. And now let's create a new base material. So this will be like a metal. And it's white, so it's metallic. And we're going to designate an area just with a shape node, just a simple shape node. Let's go ahead and change that into a disk. Then let's do a 2D transformation, and let's shrink this down. Okay, and you can see it's tiling. We do not want it to tile at all. So we're going to go in here and we're going to say, actually in the 2D transformation. My bad, we'll say absolute and then say no tiling. Okay, and we'll just need to adjust this to a size that's going to fit somewhere on this mask. Okay, so we're going to obviously see it pop up somewhere. You can see it's really large. Let's just shrink it to an area just on the mask. And let's go smaller. And again, this is just for an example, because I'm going to show you how to convert these guys in Photoshop. Okay, so let's just make this area on his head. So that's looking fine right there. Now let's just make this base material. So this is our metal base material. Let's make the color of this, let's make it kind of bright. We'll make this kind of like a grungy kind of chrome. So we'll say grunge amount. We'll take this all the way up. Okay, cool. So this is just to show, again, how rough this can look. This kind of metal area. And all right, that'll be fine enough just for tweaking. I could sit here and tweak this all day. Okay, so there's just like an area on his helmet. You know, you can do all kinds of other things. Let's make it a little more interesting, and let's just add another blend here. And let's come into the noise. And let's see, we'll pick out a noise. We'll say maybe these clouds 3. And we're going to blend this by, let's say, let's see if we can do something a little bit more. something a little more interesting, we can also just do like a slope blur. So this is we can also add a slope blur to this. What this will do is we'll take maybe something like clouds 2, and we'll add this in here, and we'll take the blur, we'll make the samples really high, and we'll put the intensity kind of low. And you can see what this is doing. It's kind of blurring this area, this circle, based on the actual clouds. So you can create some really cool scuffed up looking areas like this. So yeah, let's go and try doing just another multiply. Yeah, on second thought, let's just get rid of this blend, and then we'll just have that go into there. Okay, so I like this. It'll kind of look like it's like the paint has been scratched away. You can kind of see in these gray areas, it's like the paint's still on there, but underneath is like this metallic. So this will just be good for our example. So now if we look into the metallic map, we have an area that is non-metal, and then this white area that is a metal. So here in Photoshop, this is basically how we're going to convert the albedo. So we just have our simple albedo or base color, and then we're going to add a layer on top of that, and we have filled the layer with just black. Okay, so this is just 100% black, and then we have a layer mask that is our metal. So to actually do that, let me just open the metallic map in Photoshop. So here we go. And we can drag this into our Photoshop document and line it up. And then go into our channels and control click onto our RGB right here in our channels. And then we'll delete the layer mask. With this 100% black layer, we're just going to click our layer mask with everything selected. Okay, and then we don't need this guy. So this is our layer mask that we get. So this is our converted albedo. So let's just go ahead and save this as converted albedo. That's what we'll name it. So we'll call it, we'll just use this prefix of converted. So now in order to get the converted specular map, we have our metal map, and we are going to select it by holding Control, add that as a layer mask to the fill, which is going to be, the fill color is 38, 38, 38. So that layer is completely filled with that. Let's get this metal map out of the way now. And all we need to do is just invert this. So now this is going to be our specular map. So inside of Substance Designer, there's another really helpful node. It's called Base Color Metallic Roughness Converter that is in the PBR utilities. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the material that's coming out of here. We're going to make sure that our target is going to be, you can see they have all these different renderers here, V-Ray, Corona, Redshift, and Arnold. In Substance Painter, they have a Octane target. But anyways, what we're going to do is diffuse specular gloss. And we're going to go ahead and remap that into we're just going to run these into some new outputs. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab an output, and let's get 3 new ones. So we'll select that guy, and we'll say add item, and that's already set to diffuse. I'm going to go ahead and say diffuse here and then label it as diffuse. Add another item here. Instead of diffuse, we're going to do, I believe this next one is going to be specular. Okay, so let's go ahead and find specular. We'll name that here, specular. And then also for the name, for the label. So that will give it the label and the underlying identifier. And then this last one will be glossiness. Okay, so let's call this one glossiness. All right, so rename it. Okay, so we can view these, and you can see that these guys are exactly the same maps that we generated in Photoshop. Okay, so I just wanted to show you how they're related in Photoshop by doing it manually, and then how you can use the converter here inside of Substance Designer. So what we're going to do is let's export these new maps. The only ones that I want to export this time is the diffuse and the specular, and we'll save those out. Let's go ahead and jump back into Cinema 4D, and we already got an Octane material waiting here. So let's say helmet. Let's add our Octane image textures for the ones that we know that we're gonna need, and also for the roughness as well. And we'll locate those. So I'm not gonna use the glossiness. I have the roughness here. So the glossiness is basically an inverted roughness map. So I don't confuse anyone, specular glossiness workflow, is its own kind of PBR way of doing things, but Octane actually uses the specular and the roughness. So I'm just going to use this black and white roughness because black in Octane is shiny and white is very diffuse. So that's still the same in Octane. So I hope that doesn't confuse anyone. But let's go into the specular. And we're just going to use the one that we shot out from Substance Designer. And then we'll go into the diffuse. And let's add that diffuse. So you probably noticed in Octane here in Cinema 4D and in Substance Designer that it looks like they're flipped. Well, the easiest way to fix this, let me just go ahead and close the live viewer, is if we were to export this guy again. So let's just put it into his own scene, and let's replace this, and then we're gonna flip the x-axis. Okay, and then we're gonna hit OK and wait for that to update, and there we go. So one thing to keep in mind is that you probably would want to flip if you're exporting this. So that was one thing that I forgot about, was flipping the X so that everything from Cinema 4D looks correct in Substance Designer. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was just a kind of quick way to show you the workflow between Octane and Substance Designer and how to get those two working well together, and the differences between the kind of metallic roughness workflow versus a specular glossiness workflow. Like I said, I'll put the link of the actual documentation in the description so you can read up on it. But I just wanted to show you in person kind of the differences between the two. I think it's personally easier to work in the metallic roughness workflow and then just translate it so that Octane can read it. After doing a lot of different assets, it's just easier to say to yourself, is this a metal or a non-metal, and go from there and start building your shaders and your different materials inside of Substance Designer. So in the future, we'll take a look at Substance Painter, and we have a lot more stuff planned for you guys. So give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, or if you didn't, please tell me why in the comments below. If you have a question, leave it there as well. And check this scene file out on Gumroad if you want to try this for yourself and create a new shader for this helmet. So thanks a lot for all the support, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.